Hello, everyone, and welcome to SCORE Fairfield County's live webinar, the new grant program for restaurants and others, and an update from SBA on PPP and EIDL. I'm Tim Ryan, the webinar coordinator and a business mentor here at SCORE Fairfield County, and I'll be your host. Our presenters today are Catherine Marx and Julio Casiano. More on them in just a minute. First, I did want to say that National SCORE has implemented a new system, the Engage system, and it is impacting how we run the registration for our education events and webinars. If you're having trouble, please be patient with us. Fixes are being identified. So SCORE, 320 offices nationwide, 11,000 volunteers. We're part of the SBA. SCORE Fairfield County has over 130 volunteers. Our primary services are free one-on-one counseling, educational workshops and webinars, over 150 a year like this one. And we have extensive resources on our website, including Word and Excel documents that you can help build your business plan with. SCORE puts on many webinars each month. Look for future events on our webinar calendar at fairfieldcounty.score.org. Some information on today's event. If you have any question, please use the Q&A button at any time during the presentation. It is located in the lower part of your screen. Our webinar will end at 1 p.m. to respect your time. The session is being recorded, and the link to the recording will be available at fairfieldcounty.score.org within the next couple of days. Catherine Marx is the District Director for the SBA's Connecticut District Office, which is based in Hartford and includes a satellite office in Bridgeport. In her role as District Director, Ms. Marx oversees a professional staff of 9 in the delivery of SBA's financial assistance, entrepreneurial development, business training, government contracting, and other outreach and marketing programs throughout Connecticut. Also with us today is our friend Julio Casiano. Julio is the Deputy Director for the Connecticut District Office of the U.S. SBA. Julio began his banking career as a credit analyst with Bankers Trust in New York City. He holds a Master's of Science and an MBA from Albertus Magnus College. Welcome, and I'll turn it over to Catherine now.
Thank you very much. And I think Julio and I would love to take this opportunity to say thank you to all the volunteers at SCORE. The wealth of knowledge that you share and the talents have a tremendous positive impact on our small businesses here in Connecticut. 2020 was a year that none of us could have anticipated, and yet together, hand in hand with our resource partners like SCORE, the Connecticut SBA, as well as the United States Small Business Administration, was able to start and put out relief programs that allowed our small businesses to survive. And you were able to give your expertise to allow them to pivot. I'd like to start off with some really just extraordinary numbers to share with you. We receive information weekly on the amount of PPP loans here in Connecticut, and the numbers always astound me. We relaunched PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program, in 2021. And the latest numbers that I received on Monday are just extraordinary. Connecticut, just for 2021, has received $3 billion in PPP approvals. So I know, Julio knows, and our whole team knows that that is due to our relationships with the lending institutions here in Connecticut, but it also is because of your efforts. So we say thank you to that. But there's still a lot more work to be done. Julio and I will give a brief outline of our programs, and then we can have some time for Q&A at the end. Julio will be watching the Q&A, as will I. The relief programs were enhanced this past year by two bills: the Economic Aid to Hard-Hit Small Business, Nonprofits, and Venues Act, and the American Rescue Plan Act. So we'll be going over all of the COVID-19 relief funding, including changes in those bills. Sort of the agenda, who we are at the SBA, the programs. We'll go into some detail for PPP, EIDL, and debt relief. We'll go into some more detail for the SVAG, the Shuttered Venues Operator Grant, the Restaurant Revitalization Fund, and then talk about additional assistance. President Biden did indeed sign the American Rescue Plan Act into law on March 11th, 2020. And again, our hope is to provide relief to the hard-hit small businesses. And we are committed, Julio and I, every day we walk in the door, we are committed to administering the economic aid as quickly as possible and ensuring an equitable delivery to our small businesses and entities that can apply. So what are our programs? Here they are laid out. We have loan programs, we have payment and grant programs. Our loan programs, the Paycheck Protection Program, or PPP, is indeed a loan program because you go to a lending institution to receive it. However, let's note that it should be stated that it is meant to be forgivable, 100% forgivable. So that's our forgivable loan program. Our traditional 7A, our largest traditional loan program, there's a lot of debt relief that came out in the American Rescue Plan. We'll be talking about that. And then we also have payment and grant programs. Our Economic Injury Disaster Loan, which we will call EIDL for the remainder of the webinar, is both a loan program and a grant program because there are certain avenues where you can get a targeted economic injury disaster loan advance. And then our two new programs here that have been built up from the ground up for SBA are Shuttered Venues Operator Grant, which we'll call SVAG from now on in the webinar, and our Restaurant Revitalization Fund, which we'll call the RRF. Those are the two that people are still needing the most detail on. So we'll get into the weeds on both of those throughout the webinar. But we're still, again, very proud of the Paycheck Protection Program and what we're doing here in Connecticut. We know that this has helped businesses. We hear it every single day. The American Rescue Plan that enhanced what PPP funds can be used for. It became more flexible on the 8 to 24 week covered period. It allowed for a second draw of PPP. And allowed for businesses to deduct expenses that they use the PPP loan on for their federal taxes. So those folks that are filing taxes right now, or hopefully they've already filed them, they can actually use the expenses as a reduction on their federal taxes. We are in the forgiveness period. Julio has the best quote. He doesn't like the word forgiveness because you didn't do anything wrong. It is going to be a summer of forgiveness as we continue to walk our PPP borrowers through the forgiveness process, and the SBA continues to make advancements in that process, including simplifying the forms. EIDL advance, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan advance, came out very early in 2020, and there were some changes in how that interacted with the PPP loan, but the EIDL advance is no longer subtracted from the PPP loan forgiveness amount. A really big change that came through, and anyone who is on this call who is a single member LLC, a sole proprietor, a 1099 worker, there were significant changes to the PPP loan amount, particularly those entities which I just talked about who file Schedule C returns. So really important to calculate your PPP loan amount. You can now use line 7, which is gross income rather than net income. Currently, if you've already filed for your PPP, there's no way to redo that currently. But if you have yet to apply for a PPP loan, this is a very significant change. Many sole proprietors, independent contractors, and single member LLCs don't think that don't think that the PPP is available to them, nor do they think that it's worthwhile. With this calculation change, it is definitely worthwhile. So again, gross income line 7 to calculate their PPP amount. That is one of the significant changes that has come through. We've also expanded the eligibility for PPP and made some other clarifications. So if you have student loan debt that used to bar you from receiving a PPP loan, that is not the case anymore. So that's important. So if you had received a denial, you can go reapply for a PPP loan. And then we have made some clarifications for applicants that have non-financial fraud felony connections, and would like to really clarify that individuals that are lawfully here in the United States do have access to the PPP. Most folks on this call know what a first draw, second draw is, but if you did not receive a PPP loan in 2020, you are still eligible. Again, if you're a Schedule C filer and you really think that calculation is now worth it, you are eligible to receive one here in 2021, and that still would be called a first draw if this is your first PPP loan. We increased the eligibility expenses, and there's just been a lot of changes. And for those of you, I'm going to be going through these slides rather quickly. There's a lot of information here, but at any point, please just put a question in the chat, or you can ask it at the end if I have gone too quickly. So first draw PPP loan eligibility, it's the same eligibility as 2020, but we have expanded it to some 50C nonprofit organizations, and some internet news organizations. But what is a second draw PPP loan? So in 2021, you now have the ability to go get a second draw PPP, but this is very different than a first draw PPP. Why? The most important thing is that you must demonstrate at least a 25% reduction in gross receipts between comparable quarters of 2019 and 2020. So you need to document the need for a second draw PPP. As of this morning, there is still about $44 billion available for the PPP appropriation. So there's still money is there. Second draw also, we limited the loan amount to $2 million. And you can't overlap. So you can't apply 1 week for a first draw and 1 week for the second draw. You have to have gone through your first covered period of your first draw to indeed go get a second draw PPP, but there's still money there, still money available. The statutory deadline has increased to, has been extended to May 31st, 2021, or until the appropriation runs out. And as I said, there's still approximately $44 billion in that appropriation. With the PPP, and this is important as we talk about all of our programs, how do you apply for the program? So for the Paycheck Protection Program, it's a forgivable loan. You do go to a lender to do that. We work through the lenders for that loan. If you don't already have a lender, we have a lender match. You will complete the application with the lender, and then we work with the lender to issue a loan number, and your loan amount is deposited into your bank account. So that is the process for a PPP loan, either first draw or second draw. It is done through lender of your choice. If for some reason, for whatever reason, you were not able to get the loan 100% forgiven for Paycheck Protection Program loan, there are very favorable terms. It's a fixed interest rate of about 1% that is not compounding. So here are some of the criteria for that. Most people, if they apply properly, they use the money properly, and they go through the forgiveness process properly, that PPP loan will be indeed 100% forgiven. And now we're going to talk about forgiveness. And how does this happen? So forgiveness is you've gone through your covered period, you used your amount, you have your documentation ready, and your lender is ready. And it's the same process. You go to the lender, you fill out the forgiveness application. They have some time to look at it. And then the SBA has some time to look at it, and we will deposit the monies back into your account for the bank, and the PPP loan will be 100% forgiven. If you would like to look at copies of the forgiveness applications, we have them on our website. Though you don't go to our website, you again go through your lender, and it's a very simplified form for PPP loans 150,000 and under. And the PPP loans, again, are not federally taxable income. So we also have the traditional EIDL loans. And Julio, you want to give me a break and take the next couple of slides?
Sure, why not? That's what we're here for. There's a lot of information.
It is a lot.
Believe me, we're multitasking more than ever because the questions are coming in, not just on one program, but on multiple programs. And it's important for us to get the right information out. And sometimes there's a lag because some of these programs are so new that information is not even available to us yet. And there, again, a lot of this is legislated through Congress, and sometimes it has to go through a number of levels in Washington before we actually know. And sometimes the newspapers have the information wrong. And so it's important for you to listen and then go onto our websites and see what SBA is saying, because at the end, that's what counts. It's what's in our SBA websites, what are the applications, and a lot of the information that's rolled out in the public eye sometimes might not be as accurate. Even though it could be accurate, it's best to look at what the information is coming out of SBA.gov or contact SCORE to make sure we have the right information so that we could guide you in the proper manner. And with the economic injury disaster loan, this is one of the programs that really began back in March of 2020. So this program now is in existence for almost more than a year. And it's changed. It originally ran back in July because when Congress appropriates funds, it's based on the dollars that they appropriated for these particular programs. And when the funding ended, the program basically no longer was available to anyone who had applied. And then with legislation that did come out back in December, towards the end of the year, it reopened the program, but under specific guidelines that we'll go over. But in general, the economic injury disaster loan, as it indicated on the website here, this is new. This just happened in the last month. Originally, the program was launched with only up to $150,000 was being processed for any business that qualified up to that amount of money. Because of new appropriations and money being available, it has been increased to $500,000. However, with that caveat, also, when the program was launched, it only allowed for 6 months of working capital. So it basically covers operating expenses, which included more than just payroll. But understand that this is a loan. This is not a grant. When you apply for this money, you're really applying for a loan. And the loan was basically, it was calculated on how much money does your business need to cover in operating expenses for 6 months. What they've done is extended that to cover now 24 months. And so if you, right now, what SBA is doing, they're either contacting you, they're letting you know that you have an opportunity to request for further funding, which will allow you to go up to the $500,000 or the $500,000, or you can contact us and we could see where and what status your loan application or your original, because you already, remember, you already either have an EIDL loan approved that you already have. So say, for instance, you had $75,000 and you need now an additional $50,000, then you can reapply. So just reach out to us in SCORE and we will help you to see what status your loan is in. Other loans that we do have these are our bread and butter loans. And what you're seeing here, these are the original loans that we worked with you prior to COVID and during COVID and after COVID. These loans are still in effect. If you need to get traditional loans, then these SBA loans are still available. They did not go away. Our original loan is under the 7A Act. It's written and codified in the congressional records as the 7A. That is the codification where it provides SBA the ability through Congress to create debt through loans. And what we do, we don't lend the money out. What we do is we guarantee. And the guarantees go throughout almost every bank in the United States. So if you're an FDIC insured bank, a credit union, a savings institution, you can go to them and ask to see if they can provide you an SBA loan. And that's under the 7A program. The 504 is similar. I call that more the loan that's more for real estate and for assets that have depreciable value of over 10 years. So if you have heavy equipment that has, or that you want to buy, that's in excess of 10 years useful life, or if you want to buy real estate to incorporate your business in there, not for investment, not for leasing, but I want to move my business into a building, then that's where the 504 comes into play. And then for those really nascent small businesses, we still have the microloan program, which is up to $50,000. Now, most of this information that in this particular slide, I just have to read it because sometimes the information is as new to you as it is to me.
I'll take this, Julio, I'll take this one for you.
Sure, by all means.
So again, we're going to reference back to our beginning slide where we're talking about the different programs. So we went through the Paycheck Protection Program, and I'm just going to respond to Lizzie, who put out a question. She received a PPP-1, and your question is, does she have to go to the same lender for PPP-2? And the answer is you don't. So PPP loans are through a lender. Julio just talked about our traditional 7A, 504 and microloans, and those are through financial institutions. The 7A are through our traditional banks, and the 504 loans and our microloans are through other institutions. And then Julio talked about the economic injury disaster loan, and that's actually going back direct. You're applying directly through SBA. We have that available. And so that is something that you go directly through SBA, sba.gov/EIDL. Julio talked about the EIDL loan that now has a maximum loan amount of $500,000 to cover a very extended amount of time for your operating expenses. But during the initial onset of our national pandemic, there was something called a EIDL advance, economic injury disaster loan advance. So this was a certain dollar amount per employee. It was a very popular program, and indeed it ran out of money very quickly. It was extremely oversubscribed, and it was a grant. It was not a loan. Important to know that this was a grant. The economic injury disaster loan was a grant. This program has now been refunded, and we are going back to all those who had applied, who there was no funding left, or they did not receive their maximum amount of funding. And if they are in low income communities, and if they can prove that they have an economic loss greater than 30%, and if they have 300 employees, then we can again fund this a maximum of $10,000. We will be contacting you. We know that this is happening throughout Connecticut, and we continue to work with people who are receiving these letters. So that is the Targeted Economic Injury Advanced Program. It is important to have your financials in order when you receive these letters, and it is more important than ever to work with our resource partners like SCORE to ensure that your application is clean of error. And now we're going to go to two new programs. The first one is the Shuttered Venues Operator Grant. This is a very specific program meant for the performing arts. Currently, this was a program that we had to build from the ground up. And currently, unfortunately, the website did have some technical difficulties when it was opened. We do not have the date for the reopening. We do know that they are working on the issues and that they've really have overcome a lot of them. But you need to be a live venue operator, promoter, theatrical producer, a live performing arts organization, museum operators, zoo, aquarium, talent representatives. This is a very specific program. And one of the things that I think SBA did very well here is they continue to take questions, answer the questions through a very comprehensive frequently asked question guide that you can get on sba.gov/SVO grant. So this is the SVOG, the Shuttered Venues Operator Grant. Currently, the program is not open, but you will be applying directly to the program through the portal. You have to be registered at sam.gov. You have to have, sam.gov is the system for awards management. So if you are interested in this program, I would suggest that you talk to our resource partner, one or two of them, to make sure that you are indeed eligible for this program. But I think a lot of people are here today to talk about and hear about the new program, the Restaurant Revitalization Fund, the RRF. The bill was passed, and it took SBA some time for good reason, because we, again, are building these programs from the ground up. The Restaurant Revitalization Fund is not a loan. It is not a loan. It's not a forgivable loan like PPP. It's not a loan like EIDL. So PPP, go through your lender. EIDL, you go through the SBA.gov disaster assistance, disaster office assistance. The Restaurant Revitalization will have its own portal that you go through. There's $28.6 billion set aside for the Restaurant Revitalization Fund. We believe that it will be heavily subscribed, and the appropriations, will be there. The program will be there until the appropriations are expended. Who is eligible? Think about who are serving food to the public. That should be your primary thing. Restaurants, food stands, food trucks, caterers, inns, saloons, taverns, the whole list is there. And anyone who are serving food to the public is meant to be able to use this fund. This fund can overlap for some people. You cannot get a shuttered venue operator grant and a restaurant revitalization fund. But many restaurants here in Connecticut especially have already received their PPP loans, and that is fine. We're going to go into the calculation soon. So just because you received a PPP loan and you're a restaurant, a caterer, an inn, a tavern, a brewery, a microbrewery, a winery, you can access this restaurant revitalization fund. How much? $5 million per location, not to exceed 10 million. And we do have a minimum award. The minimum award is 1,000. Who, just as important as who is eligible, who is ineligible. So you cannot be a state or local government operated business. You have to have been own or operate. You can't own or operate more than 20 locations. You cannot be a publicly traded company. These are all things that are going to make you ineligible. You cannot be permanently closed. You cannot be a non-for-profit organization. So though all those make you ineligible for this restaurant revitalization fund. We do know that many of our restaurants are dealing with significant financial hardships. So there are some clauses. There are clauses for if you are in certain forms of bankruptcy, you will be able to apply. So you have to have an approved plan of reorganization and then meet all the other requirements. Important, attestations. The PPP loan, as well as many of our other programs, you must attest, applicants must attest that the current economic uncertainty makes the funding necessary to support ongoing and anticipated operations. So this is an important attestation that is on the Restaurant Revitalization Fund. What can you use the funds for? Business expenses, construction expenses, and business debt. This is very important. What you normally would spend in a given month, you cannot prepay debt, but normal debt. For business expenses, I think this is one of our most generous funds in what it allows the business to use the funds for. And I'm going through very quickly because time is running out. The funds must be used or spent by March 11th, 2023. That is not a typo. March 11th, 2023. That was the latest date that the administrator could use per the statute. And that is what indeed Administrator Guzman has used. There's some provisions that if your business does close, how do you take care of that? All those are very much in the detail, but you have a very long time to use the funds. You will have to have a fund assessment. You are going to have detailed expenditure report and certify what you use the funds for. So make sure, as always, that you keep very good notes as to what you're using the money for. We will continue to provide guidance. This fund, important, this fund is not yet opened. We are giving you this information so that you can prepare, you can get ready, whether there's a business advisor on the phone or a business on the call, that you can prepare to get ready. But as of today, this fund is not yet open. You're just receiving the information. Very simple terms. And again, I think this is the most generous fund in terms of usage of funding, but I also think it's one of the simplest for me and Julio and I to explain to folks. Basically, what this fund is trying to do is trying to get you to pre-COVID status. So trying to help you get there. So what's the basic calculation? the basic calculation, if you had a business that was operating January 1st, 2019, is you take your 2019 gross receipts minus your 2020 gross receipts. You take out the PPP loans that you've received, and that is your restaurant revitalization fund amount. Simple. 2019 minus 2020, take out of the effect of your PPP loans, and that indeed is the amount of your fund. There are other calculations for if you are only in partial year of 2019, and then if you are sort of getting on your feet, there's some more detailed calculations. What do you exclude from your 2020 receipts? You exclude your PPP loans. You exclude your SBA debt payments, so you won't be knocked for those. Your EIDL advances, none of those count for your gross receipts. And in Connecticut, we had a lot of state grants. Those would not be counted in your 2020 gross receipts. So those are some important key factors to walk away from. So you want to say, where do I apply? Well, we're going to have a separate portal to apply, and that's restaurants.sba.gov. So again, you're not going through the lender. You're not going through the Office of Disaster Assistance. You're going directly to this portal at restaurants.sba.gov. We are also going to have some new technology where you can go through your point of sale vendor. If you are very rural and you do not have access to either of those, there will be a telephone number for telephonic applications. So that we are really making sure that we are accommodating all people that are eligible. So again, restaurants.sba.gov. What do you need to apply? You're going to need to prove your gross receipts. You're going to need to prove your tax information, and you're going to have to use the application form. Best practices, provide the documentation, leverage your resources, use your SCORE mentors. They're here, and we are right beside them, wanting to help you every part along the way. Please note, if you make an error in your application, there's a hotline here, a hotline number, but also you're going to have to withdraw that application and get back in the queue. So make sure you get it right the first time. If you are still applying for a PPP, you have to stop. So as soon as this opens up, if your PPP loan has not been fully processed, you sort of have to stop that process, because again, remember that the PPP loans have to be deducted from your 2020 gross receipts. So we are going to take this in phases. When can we apply? We're going to have a pilot period, then we're going to have a priority period, and then everyone else can apply. Who are in the priority groups? Women, veterans, socio and economically disadvantaged individuals, and this is all self-certification, all self-certification. If you are owned by multiple people and more than one falls into this category of prioritization, if it was 2 women and 1 man, then you do indeed count for the priority period. How do we define socially disadvantaged individuals? The definition that they are using is here. Individuals who are members of the following groups are presumed to be socially disadvantaged: Black Americans, Hispanic Americans, Native Americans, including Alaskan Natives and Native Hawaiians, Asian Pacific Americans, and subcontinent Asian Americans. Economically disadvantaged individuals are those socially disadvantaged individuals whose ability to compete in the free enterprise system has been impaired due to diminished capital and credit opportunities as compared to others in the same business area who are not socially disadvantaged. Again, this will all be a self-attestation. Important caveat: you can't go and change your reorganization to apply to get into the priority period. That will disqualify you. So it is based on where you are right now in your organization. How do you get help? We already have over 80 questions, 80 frequently asked questions asked and answered on SBA.gov. It's called the RRF, knowledge-based support. So we already have so many questions that are being asked. They're out there. Go look on SBA.gov, COVID relief options. We also have that call center hotline, and you can reach Julio and myself at Connecticut_DO at SBA.gov. So Connecticut_DO for district office at SBA.gov. And we do have help in multiple languages. And I'm very pleased to say that my staff is very bilingual. Key takeaways here, I'm completely running out of time. We have loan programs, we have grant programs, and we have terrific resource partners. 2020 was a difficult year. 2021 is going to be a rebound year. We are here to help you. Don't go it alone. The SBA, along with our SCORE mentors and our other resource partners, are willing to help you access this COVID relief, PPP loans, our debt relief on our traditional programs, economic injury disaster loans, the Shuttered Venues Operator Grant, and the Restaurant Revitalization Fund. Stay up to date with SBA. Hop on Twitter with us at SBA_Connecticut. Get the most up-to-date information or sign up for our websites. We thank you, Julio and I. Every day we start our day and end our day. We are truly motivated by our mission to strengthen and maintain the economy of the United States, to aid, counsel, and assist and protect the interests of small businesses, and to help them through this unprecedented disaster. So we thank you for your time. We know that there's a lot of information here, and we'd be happy. I know Julio's be happy to answer your questions as well as I.
Thank you. We'll now use our remaining time for questions and answers. We'll take as many as possible up to 1 o'clock. So please submit them via the Q&A button that's at the bottom of your screen. As a reminder, a recording of this webinar is available within a couple of days on the fairfieldcounty.score.org website. Please check our website for information on upcoming events. So thanks a lot, guys. I actually had a client, and it came to the second draw of PPP, that she was a small restaurant. She decided after a few months to pivot to be like a specialty grocery store. So she actually ends up hiring another person, and her gross receipts are larger, but her net profit was smaller. So I guess she did not qualify. But it sounds like she may qualify for this RRF program then, right? For restaurant.
Right.
It's driven by revenue.
Right.
So
Gross revenues.
Correct.
Okay.
Right. And you bring up an excellent point. And again, I can't cover 4 programs in an hour and get to every detail, but the Restaurant Revitalization Fund does have some caveats to make sure that the entity is indeed providing food service to the public, because it's not a wholesaler revitalization fund, and it's not a lodging revitalization fund. So if someone is an inn, they will need to make sure that they are able to confirm that the entity does at least have X percentage of their gross receipts attributable to food, serving of the customer. So something like a 7-Eleven would not be classified here as a restaurant.
Right. Thank you. Obviously, these restaurants are going to be hurting well into 2021 as well. Is there going to be another round that will impact the 2021 year as well?
No crystal ball, but you never know. Congress is the one that's providing the funding with the president and the Senate. So you need three legislative branches to agree on this, and it starts with Congress and it works its way up. So, and again, the public should reach out to Congress and to their local representatives to make sure they understand the need.
Right. No, I was just really saying in this bill, didn't make any provision for 2021 then.
They
This
did
is-
not.
Okay, very good. We have another question for businesses that applied for and received the second round of PPP using the previous calculation. Is there anything they can do at this point?
Right. And that's where I'm assuming that it's a Schedule C filer who is unhappy that they probably put in their PPP before this change. That's when they should talk to Congress. I mean, our rules with SBA are based on the statute. And the statute did not have the changes in the Schedule C calculation to be retroactive. That would have to come through Congress for those to be retroactive.
Got it. I see that you've answered many of the questions through the chat window already. I really don't see anything more, I don't think. If you don't have any, and oh, another one popped up in the Q&A. I have a small scuba store and provide diving education and local diving. Our business is not coming back very quickly. I already have 49,000 SBA loan and PPP, but need more funding to be able to continue. More loans would make it even harder to be successful in the future. Are there any grants available for businesses like this?
So there's two things. One, I would ask whether they've received a second draw PPP, because again, that would be a forgivable loan as well. Whether they are ever applied for the targeted advance if they're in a economically disadvantaged community. But pure grants, that's all that we have right now. The only other option would be through DECD or taking out an EIDL loan, but that is indeed a loan and the interest rate is 3.75, correct, Julio?
Yes, for 30 years, 2 years. Well, if you applied now, you're going to get 18 months of deferment.
Great, thanks. Catherine, can you advance to the last slide? I know Catherine's got another call at 1 o'clock, so I think we'll end here for now. So again, SCORE offers free individual counseling, so please use the link on the screen or visit our website and click Request a Mentor. We are available for sessions via phone, email, or video. Also, please fill out your evaluations that have been sent at the end of the webinar. On behalf of SCORE, I'd like to thank you all for attending today's SCORE live webinar. In closing, a big thank you to Catherine and Julio. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.